Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another fine fanfiction. Now, I'm going to take a little break from all the pony fanfiction because, you see, this fine lady on Facebook, her name is Yam. I don't know the admin's name because, I don't research into that so much, but her name is Yam, and she just posted this story. It's called Birds of Paradise. Now, I guess it's a Pirates of the Caribbean fanfiction, so I guess it will be interesting. I just wanted to take a break from the ponies and such, and when I saw this, I was like, hey. Also, I will not be reading Past Sins. Well, I'll be reading it on the side, but I won't upload it until I have it all together at one, and I'll upload it all at once, just for you people that need that update. So yeah, this is for Delicious Yam on Facebook, everybody loves her and such, so I figured I would do this for her, just to show her how much I appreciate her tantalizing breasts, page. So, if she doesn't like it, I'm going to be torn. Author's note. This is my attempt at a Pirates of the Caribbean story, more specifically Jack and Elizabeth. Sigh. Let's hope I don't screw this up. Thanks for reading, tongue face. Pairing, Jack Sparrow and Elizabeth Swann, so it's Pirates of the Caribbean shipping. Haha, ship. Pirate ship. Rated M, time setting at World's End movie and on. Author, Lady Morrowind, also known as Yam. Disclaimer, I do not own Pirates of the Caribbean or any of its characters. Summary! She couldn't remember anything. He didn't want to help her. They wanted to reach paradise, but it would require a few things before they could make it. Elizabeth cursed her luck and the man looking at her with heated eyes. But they were not eyes of hate. They were heated eyes of lust. Chapter 1. It was cold. Freezing, really. Drips of water could be heard far across the room where Elizabeth Swann woke up in. She couldn't recall why she had been laying flat in the cement ground of a rusty old jail cell, or rather anything at all. Who had locked her up and why? The young man slowly brought herself up The young woman slowly brought herself off the ground in a disgruntled sigh. She noticed that her clothing had been removed and that all she had been left with was a thin silk nightgown that saved little for one's imagination. She attempted to recall her last thoughts to no avail. Where was she? Why was she here? What was her name? Was there a way of escape? Why did she feel a small tingly feeling run up her spine? The princess is finally woken up. I'm assuming that's Jack Sparrow. The princess is... I can't do Jack Sparrow. The princess is finally woken up. A deep, sultry voice came from behind her. She turned around quick to see nothing in the dark corners of the cell. Who are you? She demanded. Her lack of clothes began to make her feel a little vulnerable with a man inside of her cell. Miss Swann, you don't remember me? Now I am hurt. She heard a fake pout from another corner of the cell. Elizabeth pressed herself up against the bars of the cell to be closer to the light. If the man came any closer, she could be able to see him with any hope. No. Tell me who you are. Get any closer and I will rip you to shreds. Elizabeth ran her fingers along her nails. Her gut told her that if need be, she could gouge out a man's eyes in self-defense. Her self-manicured nails gleamed at her sides in the low torchlight beyond their cell. After all our history together, you just up and forget everything. And right when I need your help the most, too. Miss Swann, that will not do. Not at all. The voice sounded a little disappointed. Who was this man to her? Tell me who you are! Elizabeth ground out, finally done with not getting her questions answered. The man who stole your heart and rescued you from imprisonment, love. A laugh finished his sentence, and the sound of shackles being taken off were heard. Rescued from imprisonment? It looks like I'm imprisoned right now. Unless you are going to do something about it, I suggest you stop lying. Her tone rose. She may have not remembered anything at all, but she wouldn't let herself be toyed with. I may occasionally lie, but I wouldn't lie to you, love. We have an appointment that we can't miss. The man arose out of the shadows to reveal a pirate who looked quite worse for wear. He wore an assortment of trinkets and weapons on his body. He had a jet black beard and a tangled mane of hair in the form of dreadlocks and sides with beads braiding the straight locks. Deep black eyeliner was smeared messily underneath his eyelids, and a huge black pointed hat covered his head. "Who are you?" Elizabeth had enough of this enigmatic man. Why wouldn't he just answer her and stop babbling about random things? "I am Captain Jack Sparrow, love, and I will be your escort today." Jack bowed and put his hat into his chest respectfully. "To where?" Elizabeth shivered her and held her arms around her chest. There was something about the man that let herself trust him slightly. Was he an important person in her life? "You will find out soon enough, love. Just take these and follow me." Jack set his hat on her head and wrapped his jacket on her slim frame. Elizabeth shivered when the deep, musky scent of the man filled her nose and the warmth of the jacket brought her nerves back to life. His white shirt was stained with blood and dirt. From what she wondered, scratches covered his hands, and parts of his neck where previous gashes were healing were along with them. Elizabeth looked over his form another time. His pants had bloodstains along the major tears at the bottom, threads frayed in every direction. The man's boots were beyond scratched and scuffed. Parts of it looked like it would fall apart at any second. She wondered what he had done to himself before he ended up here with her. Jack held a pipe in one of his hands. Elizabeth noticed and walked past her to pry the cell open. Loud clanks echoed throughout the cell. She heard him curse a few times before the cell door was successfully pried open. "Ah, there we are." Jack smiled and held out his hand to her. "Let's be on our way then, shall we?" The two walked down the steep steps of the prison. It was eerily quiet, and Elizabeth wondered where the guards were. Did they expect him to just rot inside of the cells for the rest of their days? There were only a few prisoners inside of the huge prison. Most of them pleaded Jack for help. The pirate did not respond from them, but only through the pipe he used at one of the men. A silent, "figure it out yourself," was sent over to them. The sound of broken locks were heard moments later. Elizabeth opened her mouth to speak, but was quickly hushed by the pirate's finger pressed against her open lips. She blushed and attentively watched the man tell her to stay put and sneak off ahead to take care of guards that came closer on their route. Prisoners behind her whispered words of staying together for a safe escape. She nodded when they asked for her help, but she only focused on the pirate ahead of her who slit a man's throat in cold blood and pushed another off the edge of a cliff. He looked determined. If those eyes were pointed at her, she wouldn't have known what to do. It was very intimidating. "It's clear. Let's go," one of the men whispered when he saw Jack wave Elizabeth over to him. She ran his way with an undeniable urge to be closer to him. She was confused as to why she felt safe next to him, yet scared of him also. She decided to figure out how this man was involved with her as soon as they were free. For now, all she could do was follow him and her life in hands. With her life in his hands. "It's raining," Elizabeth mumbled to herself. Jack must have heard her, for he wrapped his arm around her waist and stopped for a moment. "It's quite ugly, love. When we get out, it will be nice and pretty like yourself. At least I hope it will be." With that, he let her go and took out his pistol. There's more over there!" A prisoner nearly shouted. 4 armed executioner-like men were coming their way. "Arm yourselves, mates," Jack told the men, who quickly looked for swords. He turned slightly to Elizabeth and gave her his pistol. "If anyone tries to come at you, then shoot them with this. Careful, though. There's only 3 bullets." She nodded and quickly hid behind a few crates in a dark corner. Elizabeth didn't like the idea of hiding and watching everyone else fight, but if she couldn't even remember her own name, maybe it was for the best she stayed in hiding. She made a mental note to ask the pirate what her name was later. A few prisoners were cut down, but most of them were still alive and were well, killing off all but 1 guard. Jack had challenged him to a sword fight, and all were watching the men skillfully attempt to cut each other down. Jack had quickly tricked his opponent by sweeping his foot underneath the man and stabbed the sword through his chest. The pirate glanced up and waved at Elizabeth to come to him. The sight of dead bodies didn't faze the woman. It bothered her, though. Why would she not be disturbed by it? It made her all the more curious about the man in front of her and herself. Almost there. I feel like this is some sort of video game or something. Like you wake up, you don't remember jack shit. You're in a fucking cell, and there's this pirate, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go kill some people," and you're like, okay. Sounds like a fun game. If it was a game, I would definitely play it. Almost there, Jack spoke. He made sure that all of his companions heard him. It inspired faith and a newfound strength in all of them. Elizabeth stayed close to Jack's side. He hadn't told her to stay back anymore, so she took the opportunity. She saw the last stretch of hallway leading to the outside where boats were docked. Jack paused and told her to wait for him where she stood. Elizabeth nodded and gripped his pistol. The other prisoners followed the pirate outside to fight the last leg of men on their guard route. "Looky what we got here! A little girlie!" A large man spoke from behind her. He wore an executioner's mask and held an axe on his back. Elizabeth stepped back into the rain. He gave her a large perverted grin and grabbed the axe on his back. "Oh, the girlie's all wet and her clothes see-through. I think I should take her to my cabin and warm her up." He walked towards Elizabeth. She felt something inside of her telling her she was in danger. She held her breath and raised the gun at the man. "Hey! You better not shoot that girl!" The man raised his axe out in anger that was all that was left that took her to pull to the trigger. The bullet went straight through his head. Blood splattered all over her, and the man fell back. Unfortunately, the axe did not follow the same direction of the hulking man. It collided with her shoulder. Elizabeth instantly felt cold. Hot blood ran down her arm and the rest of her body. She wondered why she had not moved back farther before she made the shot, but quickly dismissed the thought when pain came surging to her. She cried out in pain and fell to the floor. Rain attacked her eyes, distorting her vision. Elizabeth felt like it had been hours before a shadow of a person picked her up. "Damn it!" She heard someone curse. "You were supposed to stay safe, love." "I'm sorry," she mumbled to the distorted figure in her vision. Elizabeth wished the rain would have stopped. "It's not your fault, love. Just try and stay awake for me, eh?" She figured that it was the pirate that she had been speaking to, and nodded silently. "I found a boat!" a prisoner called out in joy. "Hurry! Let's board it before more people come!" another said, and splashing footsteps ran into the direction of the ship. She felt the pirate running also. "Out of my way!" Jack grumbled as he made his way onto the ship and into the captain's quarters. "Where the hell is it?" "Where's... what?" Elizabeth felt her energy leave her quick. Talking was becoming difficult. "Don't talk, love." "Ah, to hell with it!" She heard her nearly yell out. A loud tearing of cloth was the last thing she heard before she blacked out. "Elizabeth, stay alive, please." Elizabeth Swann groaned aloud. Her shoulder burned, ached, seared her body, felt like it was going to fall off all at once. The pain dulled when she stopped her breathing, but it came back when she inevitably needed to breathe. Her body writhed. She opened her eyes and to see concerned ones looking right back at her. "Elizabeth," the pirate called to her. A cold, wet cloth covered her shoulder when she now realized she was bound in a sling. She had been laid down in the captain's quarters on the bed. "Jack?" she asked. When she did, she caught the pained look he gave her before responding. "Yeah, you're hurt, love. We're gonna go to Port Royal to fetch some medicine. You'll be feeling better soon." Jack got up from his kneeling position and walked out of the room. "Thank you," she mumbled and tried to get some sleeping while ignoring the searing pain in her shoulder. She heard Jack yell out orders to the prisoners in which she suspected new crew members around the boat. She wondered why the man was so upset. He got his freedom like he wanted. Was it because she was hurt? Elizabeth lost track of her thought, and he drifted off to sleep. "Why don't you remember, love? I need you right now. Fucking Will. He'll pay. Elizabeth, we're running out of time." "Jack, get me some water, please." Elizabeth coughed out. She heard someone rummage around the desk, and a cold glass was placed on her lips. Cold liquid ran down her throat in a soothingly slow motion. She wanted more, but the glass emptied, and her mind began to wake up from its slumber. "You feeling any better?" Jack mumbled close to her ear. The smell of rum was profound on his breath. Her nose crinkled up in distaste for the blasted liquor. Yes, a little bit. Can you help me up?" Elizabeth opened her eyes and attempted to sit up. Jack helped her up with ease and set her on her feet. "Do you remember anything?" Jack asked her. His voice was quiet. It made her frown and instinctively turn to embrace him. She knew deep down inside of herself that his behavior was far from the normal Jack. The man tensed and embraced her back. He put his face against the side of her neck, deep within the tresses of her hair. It was a comforting and familiar action, Elizabeth noted with a few butterflies in her stomach.
No. Should I be remembering anything?
Elizabeth felt her face flush. The pirate let her go and led her out of the captain's quarters. Yeah, but it's okay. You'll remember when we get you home to rest. The captain's voice took an edgier tone to it.
Where is home?
Elizabeth let her hand go of Jack's. He turned to her with a melancholy look on his face. Port Royal, he replied shortly and grabbed her hand again.
Why were we in prison?
Elizabeth followed the man into the lower decks. The crew had set up food on the large table. She assumed that the ship they chose had been fully stocked before it was stolen. Because we are pirates. Elizabeth followed the man into the lower decks. The crew had set up... Oh, wait, what? Jack sat her down onto a chair and made her a plate of food. She noticed that he had been awfully kind to her, treating her like a princess. If they were both pirates, then why would he be pampering her in such a way? The man confused her the more he was around her. For how long was I unconscious? She ate her food slowly, although her grumbling stomach wished it otherwise. It was her instinct to eat properly and become meek. A week. We almost thought you were dead, and we can't have that, not at all, no. Jack ate the food off the plate he made himself. He looked beyond perturbed, pure poop butt. Elizabeth didn't like him like this. Who is Will? She watched the pirate drop his fork and look up at her. His eyes looked a little lighter. An old friend, flame, rival, and a backstabber to you, love. Why do you ask? His eyes watched her intently. She wanted to squirm under his gaze, but held herself firm.
I heard his name in my sleep.
Elizabeth watched his eyes flicker with emotion before he went back to eating his lunch. Anything else? The pirate captain stabbed a particular piece of meat hard on his plate.
Someone needs me, and there's almost no time left.
Elizabeth felt the tension within the room thicken. It suffocated her. He continued stabbing at his food. Elizabeth let out a stressed sigh and left the room in a hurry. Her mind hurt, her arm ached, her heart felt unnaturally turbulent, and her lungs burned. Elizabeth ran to the edge of the English ship. Her eyes scanned her surroundings. Water, and a few kinds of fish. No sign of land was anywhere to be seen. She was a little more than trapped and was tempted to just jump ship to end her stress. She couldn't remember anything at all. Elizabeth had just memorized her and Jack's name finally. In their conversation, she had hoped that he would just tell her everything she needed to start remembering, but alas, with his actions it seemed that he wanted her to remember, but she needed to all by herself. Blasted pirate! Elizabeth grumbled and set her head on the rail of the ship. She watched the masts as her mind wandered off. Italics. His heated breath panted against her neck in an uneven pace. He faintly reminded her of a dog. Showering her body in kisses, she moaned and half sighed in pleasure. Rough, calloused hands roamed around her hips, trailing circles along her inner thighs and butt. Her swells tingled in delight at the tips when he brought his head up to press open-mouthed kisses against her soft mound of flesh. Ooh. His feather touches brought pleasure to her on many levels. Her heart fluttered with every caress he made. She smiled when he kissed her. She giggled when he nuzzled her. This man was her world, and always would be. Elizabeth brought herself above him and stared into his dark chocolate eyes with an unexplained amount of love. I don't know if this is Will or if this is Jack, so... I mean, you bring me paradise every time you're near sounds like something Will would say, so I'm gonna say Will. I don't know. It might be Jack, I don't know. You bring me paradise every time you're near. His sultry voice resounded in her mind. Her heart skipped a beat, and at their shared motto. I love you. She kissed him deeply and sighed into strong tattooed arms. And I you, Elizabeth. He nuzzled his face into the crook of her neck and breathed in the perfumed scent of her golden tresses. What the hell did she miss? Was that real? Or was it a romantic figment of her imagination? Either way, it pulled at her heartstrings and made her head feel dizzy. Who was that man? He sounded awfully familiar. Looked so too, even though she never got a good view of his face. His words still resounded in her mind. Elizabeth got off of the railing of the ship and slowly walked back to the captain's quarters to think. Jack Sparrow entered the cabin shortly after she had. It was odd, she had to admit, that this man had been doting on her the minute she regained consciousness in the prison. She doubted she could hurt herself, but who knows, for she couldn't even remember what she used to be like. Elizabeth only knew that she wasn't herself, and Jack not himself. If only that would change. If she did not have complete memory loss, they wouldn't be so upset. Elizabeth couldn't get her imaginative figment out of her mind. She had been so tempted to speak it aloud that the urge increased every minute. With Jack in the room, Elizabeth felt that it was the perfect time. Clearing her throat silently, she held in her breath for a moment before quoting her imagination. "You bring me paradise every time you're near." Elizabeth's voice wavered at the end. She had started off strong but almost choked on the last word when Jack turned around and his eyes the size of saucers. "Love, you remembered." And with that, Jack cracked a smile for the first time Elizabeth had been with him in her state. Author's note. So, tell me what you think. I know they're not in character.
Yet.
Okay, so, wow, this looks very promising, and I'm looking forward to reading Chapter 2, so Yam! I'm going to upload this some other time, and I'm going to post it on your wall every single time I read a new part. I don't know if Chapter 3 is the last chapter, but you better work on it, because I want to read it. Because I love Pirates of the Caribbean, because I love pirates, and